Great. Dame Calliope Paulette Louise, Governor General Emerita, Her Excellency Nicole Su, Ambassador of Taiwan to Saint Lucia, Dr. Kenny D. Anthony, former Prime Minister, Mr. Louis Lewis, Chief Executive Officer of Export Saint Lucia, our facilitators, SLTA, too many organizations to remember. Our esteemed authors who you will meet today, Tiwé Listwa, our beautiful, beautiful facilitators, and everybody else in the room, a supporter of an author, a supporter of the organization, our favorite media people in the back. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Nelsia Charlemagne and I am the communications lead for the Listwa Collective, a budding organization, but an organization that myself and my other team members are extremely proud of. Some of you may have heard of Listwa when your family member or your friend attended our writing retreat in October of 2025. Some of you may have seen us online, you may have seen us in traditional media, you may have seen us because you know me and you know Amani and Janica and Daniel. But for whichever way you know us, I want to remind you that Listwa Collective is dedicated to harnessing the power of storytelling for creative advocacy and the preservation of cultural knowledge and traditions. This is what we're all about. It sounds like a lot of big words, but what we're interested in is centering Saint Lucian stories primarily, and of course, branching regionally and across the world. But we want Saint Lucian writers, authors, creatives to feel that they have a place in the wider literary space and the wider creative space. The core pillars of our work focus on culture, identity, history, advocacy, knowledge, and community. And you're going to hear a lot of that throughout the course of this book launch. This is a labor of love. This is the fruits of a labor of love that started a very long time ago in the mind of our executive director, Amani Matre. I'm not going to go too much into that dream and vision. She's going to have the opportunity to do that. But today I want you to just soak in as much as you can. I want you to leave here understanding that there is so much talent in Saint Lucia, and a good bit of that talent is sitting in front of me here. So give you all a round of applause. So as I mentioned, this book launch today is the outcome of a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, a lot of building our own inner confidence to say that we can put a book together. There's absolutely nothing wrong with a group of Saint Lucian authors, a group of Saint Lucian writers putting themselves out in the literary space. Saint Lucia has a brilliant literary culture. We have a Nobel laureate. How many people can say that they do that? And we are continuing to build on the foundation that has been set by so many amazing creatives before us. And so to not keep you for too long, because I can talk, I am going to invite one of the facilitators from our first writing retreat that we held in October 2025 at Balampush Estate to share some remarks with you. And I will give you a hint that he has a very special role that he played in the actual physical book that you'll see today. Mr. McDonald Dixon.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. With respect to the protocol, the cliche these days is protocol having been established, whatever that means. But I would still like to say good night to Dame Paulette and to Kenny D. Anthony, and to you, Ambassador. You all have put me in a very tight spot here. I must confess that I have not prepared anything, and I love to sit down and go through. But I had at least a glimpse of the work, and I must confess that it's of a very high standard. I mean, very seldom you get a literary magazine that comes out with short stories, poetry, and creative nonfiction, all virtually about at the same level. Normally you might get poets who are up there The short stories, not too good. And creative nonfiction, like reportage. Normally one arm is good, but I must confess that all three arms are very strong. And if I have my bias, it would not be for poetry. It would be for creative nonfiction. The creative nonfiction is out of this world. I will not mention any names because I do not want to unfair others who may be equally as good, but there are some of the creative nonfiction pieces that I read. I could, and I'm being very honest, they could enter some of the best magazines in the world. And when I'm speaking about that, I'm talking about magazines like Paris Review. You know, there was a short story, a creative nonfiction piece of a writer losing a pup or accidentally killing a pup. And that was so moving, you know, and it was done all very simply. There was another writer who lamented her grandmother, and almost a biography on her grandmother, which I went through all the phases, and you could feel all the senses coming out in the lines, which is a hallmark of a good writer, you know. It is not all the highfalutin words and the big this and the big that, and your ability to write in patois or Creole and translate it back into English. And no. It is putting your thoughts succinctly on paper for others to read and understand and perhaps absorb. And I think that this publication has achieved it. But having, I realize that tonight is the night of the publication, but I would like to talk a bit more beyond the publication. I must say that this group is coming at a very timely moment. You're coming when my generation and the generation immediately after me have passed middle age, and we are going. I mean, we've got to accept that. We're not going to be here forever. And you are the inheritors of a very long and noble tradition. You are coming into a field that have produced accomplished artists in every creative endeavor that you can think about, be it dance, be it sculpture, be it writing, and do not talk for music, and in particular Kaiso, where the exposure is perhaps at its most prolific and its most absorbing. Your work is not difficult because you have a bedrock from which to choose. In our day, when you said that you wanted to be a writer, or you wanted to be a dancer, or you wanted to be an artist, your mother would say that you're a madman, that if you want to end up drunk in a gutter. In fact, I was told that. I remember telling my mother I wanted to go to France to study art. In those days, I loved painting. I wanted to study art. And my mother told me if I want to end up drunk in a gutter, I can go ahead, you know. And then my next alternative, I made a mistake to tell her I'm going to go and study law. And my mother told me, yeah, go. You'll see if you'll only open your eyes in hell. So I ended up in banking, which I don't know too much. But if they said that the devil, the money is the devil's dice, well, I played with the devil's dice. So I must have pleased my mother in some way, because she never complained about my banking, sojourn in banking, which of course was not my first love. My first love is art. So I think that your group has it well cut out for you. And you will have a difficult choice to make, because you will have, at some stage, if you continue in your endeavor, you will have the very difficult choice of turning away very talented people. And it could be very difficult. But of course, you have the satisfaction that you would have chosen the best, you know. And perhaps you may find that you may be the nucleus to an offshoot of others that will come after, that will be able to take from you and build a tree. So the future is yours. And I was told I only have 5 minutes, and I think I'm almost there. And best of luck. And if at all that you need my services to help you in any way, I love working with the younger generation. I learn a lot from you all, and I'm certainly open once I haven't gone gaga yet. Thank you, and good night.
Good job. So Mr. McDonald Dixon was one of several facilitators who led our writing retreat back in October. And as I would have mentioned, the writing retreat was the birthplace for the book that we are launching today. We wanted the participants in the writing retreat to understand the structure of a story, not just the creative aspects, but you are writing a piece of work that we want to be able to take across the world. So we spoke about the structure of a story. How do you form a story? How do you inject Saint Lucianness unashamedly into your writing? I am not going to go at length again about the writing retreat because I have the perfect person to tell you. And it is the founder and executive director of Listwa Collective, Miss Amani Mathre.
Hey everybody, I'm so happy to see all of you here, so happy to see the support that we're getting. And as Nelsia mentioned, we're a fairly new organization, but I'm looking around and seeing the people that came out to support this work, and I feel truly, truly excited that moving forward, we're going to gather more support as we go along. It takes courage to tell stories, to care. And sometimes the only way to find that courage is to take those first uncertain steps into the unknown. The idea for a writing retreat and accompanying anthology first came to me in early 2024. It began with the incessant tug of a simple question. What could happen if we bring 10 Saint Lucian writers together and give them a space to build community, develop their craft, and find their voice? At the heart of this idea was a desire to help them see writing as more than storytelling and imagination. I wanted our writers to appreciate writing as an exercise in courage and a tool of narrative justice, a means of confronting our past, making sense of our present, and most importantly, imagining new possibilities for our future. Saint Lucia, in its 238 square miles, holds a wealth of stories. We are more than the stilted accounts you might find in history books, greater than the lens of enslavement and colonization that has long shaped how the world knew us. We are culture forged in resistance, traditions born of survival, language and folklore, and rhythm that continue to serve as a living embodiment of what was gifted to us by those who walked this land before us. It was therefore necessary that the retreat carried a strong focus on local culture, history, identity, memory, and creative advocacy, the guiding forces behind Listwa Collective as an organization and as a movement. And so I pulled together a trusted team, Doniel, Janica, Nelsia, and Tresha, and we began translating idea into action. When we first started to shape this vision, I couldn't have predicted the level of support that we would receive. I couldn't predict that it would grow wings and soar well beyond my own dreams. Over a year and a half of planning came together in October 2025 with a retreat that surpassed even my ambitious vision. A retreat where one of my favorite writers, Kai Miller, accepted our invitation to Saint Lucia to spend the weekend with a group of eager strangers, imparting his knowledge and also learning with and from us. Across 3 days, we listened, questioned, learned, and unlearned, guided by knowledgeable facilitators who led us through sessions in Story Crafting 101, Language, Culture, and Identity, History, Research, and Archiving, Folklore in Contemporary Storytelling, and the Publishing Journey. We participated in traditional oral storytelling exercises that asked us to trace our own genealogy, and we embarked on a historical tour of our host venue, Balenbush, the site of a former slave plantation. Difficult conversations were had, truths were revealed, and ideas were formed. Through our inaugural Tiwé Listwa writing retreat, we created a space like no other, shaped by contributions from gifted writers and dedicated facilitators. Something truly special came alive in those moments between the impassioned exploration and quiet reflection. something we knew that would outlive that single moment and temporary space. It continues to live within the pages of this collection that we will unveil tonight. Tiwé Listwa, Emerging Voices from Saint Lucia, is many things. It is at once a love letter to our homeland and an expression of quiet concern, a plea to be heard and a call to care. From short stories reimagining our history and folklore characters, to poems and personal essays examining family, community, and the wounds that shape us, these writings hold pieces of who we are. They underscore the issues we care about, immortalize the people we love, and they speak to our desire to have our stories told in our own voices. This book is a bold anthology where the past comes alive, the present is not what it seems, and the future is waiting to be imagined. Featuring 12 emerging voices working across short stories, poetry, and essays, this collection represents a renewed commitment to Saint Lucia's long-standing tradition of literary excellence. In these pages, storytelling is both remedy and reckoning, as our writers grapple with universal questions alongside distinctly local concerns. These stories ask of readers not to look away, but to look within, and that too takes courage. Thank you.
I keep saying it, Amani is our founder and executive director. Amani is the lifeblood behind Listwa. This is her passion, and we are the wind beneath her wings, to be literary. The Tiwé Listwa Emerging Voices of Saint Lucia book launch, this activity that you are at today, is part of the official 2026 Emancipation Calendar of Events. We had the distinct honor of being placed on the calendar. I think it truly reflects the work that we do. It is in line with what emancipation is. We are on brand, as the young people like to say. The most exciting part of our agenda is coming up. I'm going to employ a literary device and build some suspense before we get to that, and invite Mr. Michael Fletcher to entertain you. May all be wondering, these people invited me to a book launch. Where's the book? The book is here. The book is here. But the physical book is so extremely special to Team Listwa that we had to hide it until we were able to show all of you at the same time the cover of this book. There is a story behind the cover of this book. One of my team members is going to go into it, but I think it's one of those mad hat ideas where you just have to do it, and the worst thing that can happen is it doesn't happen. But in this case, it did happen, just like the book happened. We are extremely proud of what you are going to see in the next 6 to 7 minutes, so I think you can hold on for that long, and then everybody will get to see our baby, essentially. I'm going to invite my team member, Janika Simon, who is going to lead this grand unveiling portion of our agenda this evening.
Before I begin, I just want to welcome and acknowledge the presence of Doyena Delishiambola, our resident British Commissioner. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And I had to give Nelsia a little coaching. I said, we're a serious organization now, so you have to actually pronounce my name correctly, which she did before introducing me. Thank you, Nelsia. We have to get accustomed to the idea that we're big people doing big things and not just a collection of mad women embarking on mad ideas over coffee. So earlier this year, when we were all trying to wrap our heads around the reality of actually putting a book together, I had the wildest idea. And I ran it as a sanity check in the group chat. I said, I'm going to ask Jonathan Gladding to paint something for us to use on the cover. Unfortunately, the esteemed artist behind our beautiful cover art couldn't be with us here in person tonight for the unveiling, but Amani and I met up with him at his Mont LeBlanc studio this week for a chat about how this cover came to be. And I began by asking him why he agreed to our audacious request.
Well, first of all, I'm very happy that you're here and honored that you came all the way down to Labrie to visit me here in my little studio so we can look at the painting. What came to mind, well, I get requests from time to time about illustrating books, and usually I can't do it for one reason or another. But when I got a message from you, I thought, well, it's probably going to be a good project, a good idea. And then when you mentioned Ballenbush, I thought, oh, this is wonderful. I love the place. I haven't been there in a long time. Never really, well, I've done a couple small paintings, but I would love to go back. And knowing that you're involved with this project, it was a good one, so it was an easy yes for me. When I got there, I was very excited. You know, it's just everywhere you look, it's something interesting, something beautiful. And when we came across the scene that we settled on, yeah, for me it was perfect because I love nature and I love history, so I thought it was a wonderful combination of the two. And on another level, it's like the classic man versus nature scene, where you have these old rusting pieces of machinery from a different age in a location that was once a hive of activity filled with people. And now, many years later, you see nature taking it back. So, yeah, it was kind of man versus nature, and as usual, nature wins. We do what we can while we're alive, and then eventually nature takes things back. And so I thought this would be an interesting image to symbolize that. And 1, 2, 3. Voila. Ballenbush Sugar Mill Ruins, the water wheel. Yeah, this was, to me, I mean, the Balenbush is a beautiful place, and there's so many interesting things to look at. I think this is what hit me the most. You have some kind of building. I'm not sure what the purpose was. Something to do with the sugar production, obviously. And then you have this enormous wheel, and just a huge piece of machinery. It must have dominated the landscape at one time. And now you have this tree. It started slowly, and it's growing itself around the building, around the gears, and as are flowers, plants. And so it must have been a very industrial-looking site at one time, but I guess nature's made it beautiful again.
This is the first time that you're going to see your artwork translated onto the book cover. So I'm going to hand this to you.
Thank you.
And if you don't mind opening it up.
Very happy
and
to.
letting me know how you think it translates.
Wow, wow, wow. Oh, this is fantastic. Oh my, somebody did a wonderful job with the layout and the decisions that were made. I love it. Oh, cool, the image extends right around to the back. Oh, this is really nice. The color's accurate. Layout is perfect. I think I like it better than the painting. Thank you.
And many of you might know the book from former President of the United States, Barack Obama, called The Audacity of Hope. And I just want to translate that into a little Lucianism and say this is the result of the audacity of trying a thing. It did work out. Thank you.
I feel like I was getting very emotional standing in the back. I was the first one to receive the physical copies of the book, and I don't think it hit any of us probably until now that these four mad women have a book. A book filled with beautiful stories and beautiful creative expression by our authors that you are going to meet and hear from, or at least hear some of it from them today. Before we do that, though, the second part of our grand unveiling is to show you what you saw on the screen in front of you. And so I'm going to ask Amani Mathare, our executive director, and Janika Simon and Danielle, who is our operations lead, to do the second part of our grand unveiling. A round of applause, please.
Seeing this video of Gladding made me emotional. About 5-6 years ago, I saw one of Gladding's paintings on the Saint Lucia directory, and I've always loved his work. So I cut that off of the directory and I stuck it in my journal, and I was like, one day I'm going to afford a Gladding painting, you know? I was manifesting it. And I stuck it, and I put this little quote that a story tells 100 words, and I started writing about this vision. I don't know where it was coming from. I said that I want to tell stories. I want to tell Saint Lucian stories. I want to make people feel seen. And watching that video and seeing that, going from cutting Gladding's cover and putting it in my journal.
Amani cut her story short because she would cry. And so I know it's over in the corner there, but I'd like for all of you to turn your attention and zoom your eyes, if you must, to this table where my team members are going to unveil the book. 1, 2, 3. So this is Tiwé Listwa, Emergent Voices from Saint Lucia. This is 160 pages of pure gold, if I do say so myself. The cover meant a lot to us. Again, it was one of those things where you just throw an idea into the world and it happens. We, with the help of Raisa, one of our facilitators, and Yolene, who's unable to be with us today, we toured Balenbush Estate. We stood up next to this water wheel, and all of my authors can probably tell you the emotions that it drew up for them. There's a heaviness associated with Balenbush Estate when you really take into consideration what happened at this site. This was a former slave plantation. That is what happened at that site. And I think it's very fitting that we are launching this book during emancipation. We are reclaiming what took from us, and it is living in perpetuity on the cover and the back of this book. And I'll be remiss if I don't say that I'm extremely proud of my team members, and even more so of the names who are stamped forever and ever in this book. This is yours. And so because this is that of our beautiful, beautiful Saint Lucian authors, no better way than for you to hear from these budding literary icons yourself. And so several of them are going to read excerpts of their work for you today, And I want to let you know that this is also the author's first time seeing the book. They had never seen it. I was keeping it under the strictest of lock and key. And so this is a full circle moment in a lot of ways for us. And so our first set of readings are going to be by Miss Tia Christopher, Petana Emile, and Monique Auguste.
Bel bonsoir à toutes. Moi te promettre comme moi pour pas envie rien, ni expérience, ni senti pièce manière, ni moun, espoisement moun. Mais moi envie en l'amitié qu'on yo dé, en l'amitié di want, en l'amitié qui j'ai passé comme même millions l'année, qui a senti à quoi dit, et en n'y commencé. En l'amitié qui s'a supporté yon à l'autre, en afalai et toi blante. Moi envie en l'amitié qu'on carou et puis atabé. En l'amitié qui s'a doubout à pas, mais toujours garder bien joine. En l'amitié qui s'a réfléchi belle té. En l'amitié qui a forcé moi pour garder un l'autre pays comme moi. En l'amitié qui a fait moi kachile et puis kweye. En l'amitié qui a fait caille. En l'amitié qui a levé et puis occupé la grande. En l'amitié qui laisse qui l'amitié même. Moi te promettre comme moi pour pas envie rien, ni espérance, ni senti pièce manière, ni moun, espoisement moun. Mais moi envie en l'amitié, en belle amitié, qu'on se piton. Merci un peu.
I'm now going to call on Miss Petana Emile, who had the pleasure of being the youngest member of our writing retreat back in October, but by no means did that mean she was not at the same level as the rest of our authors.
My name is Petana Emile, and this is a snippet from the piece, My Foreign Tongue. She didn't have time to finish. Kelsey snapped her neck with an effortless twist. The body collapsed to the floor like it was waiting to fall. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. It was as if my voice had been stolen from me a long time ago during my period of unconsciousness. A slow burn coursed across my cheek as I watched the aftermath of my undoing. My hand rose without my permission, brushing the scar and feeling its warmth. It was open again. My body moved slowly towards Kelsey, against my will. I felt myself drowning inside my own mind, Kelsey forcing me to take a back seat while she controlled my bones and flesh. Terror clawed at my chest relentlessly. Why wasn't my body obeying me? Kelsey watched as I approached, her face dense with satisfaction. Only then did I fully comprehend language was never just words. It was protection, history, and in my case, survival. And I had been illiterate when it mattered the most. Guilt was a luxury for those who still had a choice. All I had was regret. Death wasn't just hovering in the air, it was counting down my remaining heartbeats. In the ordinary language I never cared for. I was dying tonight. Not a hero, but a warning. Know the tongue of your land before it betrays you. Thank you.
Miss Monique Auguste. And Monique has, I'm going to let you listen to Monique's story.
I will be reading a short passage from the story, Whistling at Night. Antoine took another pull of the joint, smoke filling his lungs. His chest began to burn almost immediately. He bent forward and coughed hard, the sound rough and animal-like hacking its way out of him. He hadn't smoked in a long time, not since his early 20s. But tonight, he needed something to take the edge off, something to help him forget. There was a reason he had come here to spend the night. He was no longer welcome at home. The police had escorted him out rather unceremoniously earlier that evening after a domestic dispute between him and his wife. It had started small, petty even, words thrown back and forth, nothing unusual. Somehow, it had grown into something much bigger. He could not even remember all of it clearly. He remembered slapping her, punching her, kicking her, then everything went black. The only thing he remembered after was the muffled, terrified cries of his children, begging him to let their mother go. Maybe one of them had run for the neighbor. He did not know. All he knew was that his hands his hands were pried from his wife's throat. The humiliation burned worse than the smoke in his lungs. The officers had suggested he spend the night somewhere else, gave everyone time to cool off. After all, they said, married couples have their ups and downs, nothing a little prayer could not fix. Where was he supposed to go? His parents' house? Out of the question. He could not look his mother in the eye and tell her what he had done, not after the way she had raised him. Make sure you never turn into one of them dirty men who put their hands on a woman, eh? She used to say, a real man would never do that. So here he was, hiding like a coward, back in this old wooden house, afraid to face what he had done, like the scared little boy he once was. He took another puff and cranked his grandmother's old radio. Slowly a tune pushed through an old reggae song, its voice stretched and bent, but familiar enough to make his chest loosen just a little. He leaned back in his chair and exhaled. Somewhere along the way, he started whistling. He did not notice it at first. It slipped out of him the way breath sometimes does when you are tired and your mind drifts. Soft, thoughtless, a thin ribbon of sound curling through the kitchen. Then he heard himself. He froze. His mother's voice rose up sharp in his head like a hard slap. You want spirits following you home? Whistle in the dark. Antoine shut his mouth, teeth clicking together. His hands slammed down on the counter, and for a second the house was quiet. Just the radio's faint crackled and the distant hum of the generator outside. Then the whistling started again, but this time not from his lips. Thank you.
Before we move on, because I know that that last story was probably a lot for some people, we do have a lovely musical interlude by Miss Saint Lucian, former Miss Saint Lucia, and the person who had the very big deal of bringing us that JC's crown for the first time in decades. Saint Lucian, everyone.
I have the distinguished pleasure of performing a selection from one of our cultural icons, Dame Saint Lucia. And cultural music is something that's just so special to me and I admire so much, especially because of how relevant it can still be in our society today. And so the song that I'm about to perform for you, Saint Lucia asks, how is it that today it seems that no one is able to love just for the sake of loving anymore. It seems that if anyone has to give any love, it is that they expect something back in return. She says that our children nowadays, they don't love for nothing. Now, if you know that's true, I'm sure you know what to say. Et oui, savoué. All right. Yes. Si mwen di ou sa fè mwen la pen, ou pe kwe savoué. Si mwen di ou wache che mwen, ou pe di oui savoué. Si mwen di ou fini chwe mwen, ou pe kwe savoué. Zot mama ya chwelma, pa ka fè l'amour zot pou ye. Si mwen di ou sa fè mwen la pen, mais oui savoué. Si mwen di ou sa fè mwen la pen, mais oui savoué. Si mwen di ou sa fè mwen la pen, mais oui savoué. Se mama ya chwelma, yo pa ka fè l'amour pou ye. Mwen jwen nou o gwa chime, mwen jwen nou tout dechiwe. Mwen pwe emmene la kay, bo pwe bo ou manje. Mwen mene an magasin, ay ba ou sa ou bouzwe. Ou te kwe masa travay, ou ka pwe pache ou kale. Si mwen di ou sa fè mwen la pen, mais oui savoué. Sing with me. Si mwen di ou sa fè mwen la pen, mais oui savoué. Si mwen di ou sa fè mwen la pen, mais oui savoué. Se mama ya chwelma, yo pa ka fè l'amour pou ye. Si mwen di ou sa fè mwen la pen, ou pe kwe savoué. Si mwen di ou wache che mwen, ou se di oui savoué. Si mwen di ou fini chwe mwen, ou pe kwe savoué. Se mama ya chwelma, yo pa ka fè l'amour pou ye. Now I'm really going to need your help with this next part. Eh? You'll have to get these vocal cords a little bit warm, right? So you're going to sing this line for me and keep it going no matter what. All right, we ready? Savoué. Savoué. Let me hear you. Let's go. Savoué. Oh, very nice. Keep it going. Si mwen di ou, si mwen di ou, si mwen di ou, sa fè mwen la pen. Si mwen di ou, si mwen di ou, oui kwaze che mwen. Oh, oui kwaze che mwen. You pedi savoué. Si mwen di ou sa fè mwen la pen, mais oui savoué. Si mwen di ou sa fè mwen la pen, mais oui savoué. Si mwen di ou sa fè mwen la pen, mais oui savoué. Zot mama ya chwelma, yo pa ka fè l'amour pou ye. Si mwen di ou sa fè mwen la pen, mais oui savoué. Si mwen di ou sa fè mwen la pen, mais oui savoué. Si mwen di ou sa fè mwen la pen, mais oui savoué. Zot mama ya chwelma, yo pa ka fè quick, yo pa ka fè kwak, yo pa ka fè l'amour pou ye. Thank you, my dearest mother on guitar.
I do know, though, that you want to hear from some more of our authors, and I am happy to continue that part of our agenda for you today with 4 more of our authors, Mr. Lindell Halliday, Christina Daniel, Hazen Louis, and Kerwin Eloise. We're going to start off with Mr. Lindell Halliday.
Good evening, everyone. I will be reading an excerpt from my short story called the Madras head tie. I would like to start with a disclaimer. I'm still working on my Creole pronunciation, so if I don't get some of the Creole words perfectly, forgive me, please. "50 cart lengths in, a putrid stench hit us like a stone wall, filling the night air, suffocating the aroma of canes. It was a familiar odor, one I was used to. We made a right turn, passing a patch of young avocado trees. On the nearest one dangled what remained of Louis, a former Neg Chan. Maggots had already started to devour the flesh of his lean flame, which swung freely on the tree, secured only by 2 hemp ropes looped around what had once been his neck. 2 nights ago, he had tried to run for the 3rd time. I had overheard him talking about his plan, and it had been my duty to tell Massa. The first time he tried to run, Massa had told me to give him 20 lashes with a cat. I gave him 21. The second time, Massa had said to give him 40. I gave him 41. This time, Massa said he had to be made an example, lest others follow his folly. I made 2 nooses. Louis was a fool. The brigands had long lost. I had told him if he did what he was supposed to do, he would not have to spend all of his days toiling in the cane fields. If he would only listen, he could one day become a Nege Kai like me. But Louis's head was hard. As the rotten scent finally faded, the screams of a young woman bellowed from the quarters at the end of the field. "Be quiet," warned a stern voice. The voice was low but firm, yet the still air carried his words. I recognized the speaker. It was Massa's young son. I also knew who the screams were coming from. It was Marianne. She was the first daughter of a young Pham Chan and had recently come of age. The screams stopped. A dreary sobbing replaced them. I fixed my eyes on the silhouette of Gros Piton on the horizon. I bit my lips, tightening my grips on the rein. The mule braid I loosened. That will be all, John Paul. It was the first time Massa had spoken since we left the hills. We had reached the big house.
Lindell Holiday, everyone. I now want to introduce you to Miss Christina Daniel, who is going to be performing her excerpt next. Christina?
Good evening. I will be reading an excerpt from my short story, The Ogre of Gopita. A high-pitched shriek erupted in the air, and John Paul was yanked off her with a scream. Something warm splattered over her, and she heard the sound of wet tearing and breaking. She opened her eyes to see a pile of guts and gore, bones sticking out, which would have been terrifying on its own if not for the creature standing over it. It was gray and cracked like rock, with streaks of green like moss all over it. The creature blended well into the surrounding, which explained why it chose to reside there, easily camouflaging itself. It had the smallest black, beady eyes, which didn't look like they could see anything. There didn't seem to be a nose. If there was one, it was too small. Most of its face was consumed by its gigantic mouth, wide and gaping and glinting, white pointed teeth. Its most noticeable feature was a humongous tongue. Black and thick, it hung from the mouth, swinging freely. That was when she realized that in her haste to run for her life, she'd wound up on Gopita and was face to face with the ogre. It inhaled deeply, taking in the scent of the surroundings, and growled in what seemed like an appreciation. And then, that grotesque tongue began to extend slowly, making its way towards her, growing in length and expanding in width. The tongue inched ever closer, coming right up to her face and licking her slightly, leaving a trail of pungent white saliva on her cheek, which made her gag. It gave a high-pitched shriek of satisfaction as if the taste was delicious, seemed to shiver with excitement, and started to quickly make its way towards her. Thank you.
And now I have the distinct pleasure of welcoming to the podium one of my good friends, Ms. Saint Louis, to read what she has produced for all of you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I will be reading an excerpt from my story, A Victim's Diary. Jasmine did not know her mother's struggles, but she had seen her tears. Too many of them. She had watched the strongest woman she knew slowly become someone she barely recognized. The pages of her diary were smudged with dried up tears, a victim's cry. The house they lived in also felt unsettled, as though it held multiple stories, sworn to secrecy. Stories that, by opening this one book, Jasmine was about to uncover. The night before she found the diary, she had heard movement in the house. Not footsteps, something unnatural. An evil spirit. Or, like her grandmother would say, a gaji. That was the moment Jasmine decided she would uncover the truth. She knew her mother's diary was hidden in her closet behind several shoes. She took it and held it close to her chest. And as 1,000 thoughts rushed through her head, she opened it. Dear diary, this is not the first or the last time I have felt the pain of a Sukuyo attack. I wonder how much life my body has left to give. Each time my mother's words echo in my ears. The blood they need is not feeble. It is youthful. It is resistant. And don't you run, my dear. They will devour you till the last drop. This is my record. If I lose this battle to the blood-sucking monster, I want the world to know what caused my demise. The merciless touch of a Sukuyo. And because my mother started her stories with the infamous line, I will start this journey, this record of pain, with "Idi quick! Wow. Idi quick!" Wow. Jasmine had heard these stories before. In fact, nearly every Caribbean child knew of Sukuyos, Lajables, Kokma, Bolam. They are our cultural icons in the folklore world. Her grandmother, whom she affectionately knew as Mum, made sure she knew of them all. She would sit Jasmine down on a woven chair, plait her hair, and begin her unorthodox stories featuring those mysterious creatures. She always started with a call, to which Jasmine had to respond. Then her voice would rise and fall. And sometimes she'd sing and rhyme. The story she told may have seemed frightening, but their intention was always to protect. Thank you.
Mr. Cohen Eloise, who I, clap for people. Who I will let you all know taught literature to both Amani and myself in secondary school.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, I will be reading an excerpt from something called 1979. Lord Atherton, Secretary for British Affairs, Ambassador Chamberlain, Prime Minister Philip Caddo, leaders of the Conservative and Labour parties, members of Parliament, and the people of Britain, I bid you a good morning, bonjour, et bon matin. A tiny voice echoed within the chamber as she beheld the spectacle before her. It's true what Shakespeare once wrote, she mused. All the words are stage, and all the men and women merely players. We know that in this turbulent world, peace is needed for survival. And ever since the Concordat of Castries and Accords of the Fames in 1558 and 1814, Creole Islanders and Britishers have lived together in unity. The Crown has shed some level of equity between us. We have allowed for your culture and heritage to thrive, to allow for your language to continue. Advancements in our technological and social improvements were shared. She paused at that moment to take a sip of her water and use it as a ruse to scan the crowd. The countenances ranged from plastered smiles to warmth to outright hostility, and each in her brain began to rise, but she ignored it and continued. It is in this spirit we must continue our interdependence and collaboration. She took a deep breath, her eyes unblinking. Creole is a living thing. It has powers beyond comparison. This is why I asked this assembly to pass the language bill and accord it the same respect that I have done to English. The diplomatic spirit of a sister, rather than the reckless arrogance of Cecil and Chamberlain, shone through. The rapturous applause she expected never came. Instead, a loud explosion echoed. Everyone tense as the eyes turned towards the windows, and the shattered pieces of the royal carriage rose like fireworks. Outside, a horde of flesh kept pressing against the crowd barriers as the nervous English bobbies feared what was unfolding. Meanwhile, inside was bedlam as the IRG rushed their podium, their faces drawn and ready for use. Lord Atherton's inner child was filled with glee. These disgraceful Britishers never seemed to amaze him with their dissatisfaction with what they got. A whole island, language, their religion, folklore, and traditions untainted by slavery and kidnapping, and years of psychological damage to generations of DNA, and yet still that wasn't enough. What a fuss he fought as he was lifted into the security cordon next to a giddy Chamberlain who chortled utter savagery at the animalistic attitudes of the crowds outside. The bobbies were being besieged by a crowd, desperate to escape what they felt was another attack. And outside agitators fueled en masse, with Molotov cocktails crashing on the door frame of the building, whilst others were doing a full court press, driving the mob towards the entrance shouting, "Aujourd'hui, c'est nous Bastille. À bas les Creoles. Down with the Creoles. A free England." Thank you.
And so I don't think that this would be a Saint Lucian event steeped in Saint Lucian culture without our next interlude. And so I urge you to turn your attention to the door, to the front, to the music, and enjoy. And I want to ask you to give a round of applause, not just to our masqueraders, but to one of our authors, Miss Hazen Louis. Hazen, tell the people hi. And Monique Ogista as well, who are deeply embedded in the Youth in Arts program, where the masqueraders that you just saw are growing. And so I assume Bamba Mosul is your doing, making the traditions modern. Our collection, our anthology, Tiwé Listwa, not only features poetry and prose, but also some personal essays that bring you real life stories in a very vulnerable way. That is the word used by one of the people that you are about to hear from. And so I want to lead you into our final set of readings for the evening by Miss Amanda Faye Clark, Amani Mathur, our Executive Director, and Miss Krista Setage. Amanda Faye Clark, everyone.
This is an excerpt taken from my lyrical essay entitled The Courage to Speak. For every woman who was told to be quiet, there are silences we inherit long before we were born, silences braided into our mother's hair, silences folded into Sunday dresses, silences stitched into the lining of our laughter, waiting for the right sorrow to unravel them. I come from women who swallowed words like seeds and bloomed in silence. Women who spoke in prayers, in glances, in things left unsaid. They were fluent in absence, experts in enduring. Their voices echoed in the clatter of enamel cups, the shuffle of slippers across floorboards, the hush of rain on galvanized. I used to think that courage was loud, that it needed a microphone. But I have learned that the first act of courage is not to speak, it is to listen. To the words that were never given, to the stories hiding behind our eyes. My voice was not always mine. It was shaped by school books that told other people's stories, by news scripts that taught me to be neutral, by pulpits and platforms that made volume a virtue. But one day, I heard something different, a crack, a split, a tremble in the script. And I realized that silence is not the opposite of speech. Silence is the waiting room of truth, the womb of everything I needed to say, but didn't know how. So I wrote, not in straight lines, but in loops and spirals and scars. I wrote like someone digging for her ancestors. I wrote like someone lighting a candle in the back of her throat. Thank you.
And now you get to hear from Miss Listwa herself, Amani Mathur.
It's actually It's based on my great-grandmother, somebody very important to me, and it's titled For Ismeda. It's different for me because I usually write fiction, and I'm learning that the creative nonfiction is a lot harder because it takes courage, as I said earlier. So this is For Ismeda. Decades after her transition, this is how I remember my great-grandmother, as the translator and mediator of language, family history, memory. A woman whose delicately wrinkled mouth held all our stories safe, offering them up to us with the tenderness of sacrament. We, her great-grandchildren, did not carry the language of her knowing, for this strange glossary that my great-grandfather insisted upon did not echo in our own bones. Yet, my great-grandmother gifted to us her divine remembering without grudge, planting our history inside the few words we all had in common. I wonder still about the most precious memories, those she kept for herself, concealed within the words she learned to bury beneath her tongue. I question how much of her was lost to translation, remaining untraceable, unknowable, impossible to shrink into the confines of the strange new vocabulary pressed against her teeth. Perhaps that was one of the reasons she spent most of her time talking to herself, an inheritance I carry. In her small wooden kitchen where salted meat hung from the rafters or sat in white buckets with red covers, Mum was both storyteller and audience to her own animated tales. There, she kneaded dough to make large bakes for the many mouths she fed. There, she pounded and molded dried cocoa beans into delicately scented sticks she later turned into sweet, steaming cups of cocoa tea. A few feet away was the closet-sized fireplace where she cooked. Her only company, the smoke from the firewood, and that one massive darkened pot that sat on the raised stone platform. I suppose the stories she kept to herself stayed entombed in Mum's body, grown smaller over time with age. In the final chapters of her life, I imagine she kept them somewhere deep inside the pages of her chest, as she remained bound to the bed my father had built her with his own youthful hands, reverently carving her name, Ismeda Solomon, into the headboard. When Mum lost one leg to diabetes, amputated at the knee, I wonder what stories were cleaved from that aging archive. Perhaps one was the memory of the feel of the grassy earth of various parts of Deriso and Miku that her bare feet had learned in her youth. Maybe another was the map of the many, many miles she used to walk from Bellevue to Grace and back at the close of every single month, dutifully making her contributions to the community pool that would fund one funeral after another until it was her own. Thank you.
And now our final reading. I don't know, some of you might think it's a good thing. I think it's a bad thing. Miss Krista Setage.
Right. My short story is entitled The Mystery of Faith. And to anybody who's Catholic, yes, The Mystery of Faith. So my short story you'll find in our really beautiful book. It's a collection of stories, and I will leave it vague like that. When you read it, you'll see that my story, I think it's vague and it's vulnerable, and those seem like they fighting with each other, but you will see, okay? The Mystery of Faith. I sometimes think I harbor hate from each line of my ancestry, a grief so ancient within me. I've grown to despise alcohol. Not in any sort of pretentious way, no. With the same burning sensation customarily felt by inexperienced drinkers. The same empty eyes and numb countenance afforded to the adept ones. With a similar hot head and sharp tongue earned by the real alcoholics, I hate it bad, bad. The kind of hate natural only to the child of a boozer and a bar owner. Raised on memories of quiet playing at home as peals of rowdy laughter rang from a short distance away. A child with a steely gaze, melted, molded, and cooled from years of maneuvering between a loud, angry man and a desensitized, passive woman. Out of an anxious fear of becoming anyone related to me, From time to time, I tend to hate myself. I am ever fascinated by those with real role models around them. Role models who carry impressive stories of triumph and from whom inspiration and motivation spill freely. I emerged from a line of women who have never rested, and men who have callously exploited and maintained that. People I am cursed to never truly know or understand, for it has been written into our scripts until the very bitter end. So, I too do not rest, and to myself, I am cruel. Neither side has liked themselves, and neither do I. It seems to have been written into our scripts until the very bitter end. They never go to sleep or do so peacefully. They have always fallen into it, heads bobbing and dropping begrudgingly and involuntarily. I do not hate change. However, there is a heaviness and a dampness it produces and subsequently compels us to carry. It is the sitting in, grappling, and inherent conflict of, rather than fleeing from, this emotional unfamiliarity and discomfort, where we discover for ourselves the poignant sorrow beneath this guise of hatred. And when we locate the hidden depth of such sorrow, it is crucial we understand that this is a sorrow that is shared, not unique to solely any one of us. The mystery of faith.
And so, esteemed guests, lovers of literature, you've heard from all but two of our authors, and the two authors were not able to make it to today's activity. This is a group of creatives, and sometimes creatives have other creative things that they have to be involved in. And so I want to just mention, while we're here, Ms. Danielle Dubois, who is featured in this book, and Ms. Trisha Lionel. And when you get your copy, you read their story. We are nearing the end of our ceremony, our book launch today. I will be remiss if I don't mention a few things before we get into saying thank you to everybody. I think at the beginning, Amani and I emphasized that this book launch is the child, essentially, of the writing retreat that we held in 2025. And our intention is to hold this writing retreat every other year. And so our upcoming retreat is planned for 2027. Our plan, because it's not a goal, we're making it happen, is for an anthology to come out of every writing retreat. So writing retreat in 1 year, anthology in the following year. Thank you, Mr. Wilkie. And so we're building a body of Saint Lucian literature to add on to what has existed for decades in this country. This is the large mission that we are boldly taking on. And while we have all of those dreams, it is a very big mountain to climb. And so our retreat last year was fully funded and financed through the Commonwealth Foundation. And we will be, over the course of the next year or so, reaching out to the partners that exist locally, regionally, internationally, where it be, to make our next retreat and future Listwa collective events a reality. So some of you might want to take note of that. We also need partnerships to spread the word and market this book. We're going to be doing a lot. You're going to see us everywhere. You cannot escape us. But with your help and the help of people who are not in this room right now, our intention is to take this as far as it can go. So we need your work to sustain this. We are committed to the cause. We're very, very appreciative for all of you being here and hope that in your special way, you can join us on this journey. And so without any further ado, we are going to be making some quick presentations to our authors and a few other people because, like we said at the start, they had not seen the book. I put on the podium so when they came up, they could look down and see that this is my work. And so I'm going to call on Amani and Janika Simon, who I neglected to mention that Janika is the engine behind this and making all of this happen and being some of the sense when we're all over the place. And so authors, be on standby. We're giving you your baby. So I hope we did not keep all of you here too long. There's a good cause. Worst places you could be on a Saturday evening. And so I'm going to call each of you when it is your turn, and our lovely executive director will make their presentations to you. Oh. Okay. I think I would have mentioned as well that some of this would not have happened without our facilitators, the guiding light, our literal tour guides at Ballenbush, and people who have written a lot of work inspired by and at Ballenbush. Mr. Dixon, I'm looking at you. And so our first presentation is actually to Mr. Adrian Auger, who has played a very huge but quiet role in all of this. Even now, he's trying to play a quiet role. Don't be shy. Ms. Drania Frederick has been particularly instrumental. Ms. Frederick led our last session at the writing retreat, and after this was a weekend-long writing retreat. It wasn't one day, and you would think that at the end of the retreat you're tired, you're ready to go home. That wasn't the case. Yeah, thank you so much. Miss Raisa Joseph, who I think had one of the most engaging sessions at the writing retreat. Authors, but what you don't expect to hear jukebox, musical, instrumental, and all sorts of things. And to Mr. McDonald Dixon, who started off our retreat. He led our first session. It was a very intimate session. I think our writers learned a lot. Look at the nice people, Mr. Dixon. Miss Christina Daniel. A round of applause, everybody. Amanda Faye Clark. A round of applause for Amanda. Ms. Patana Emile. My literature teacher, Mr. Cohen Eloise. Nico Geist. Hazan Louis. Yeah. Lindell Halliday. A round of applause for Lindell. Tia Christopher. And Ms. Krista Setage.
we do have copies for sale tonight. Nelsie will tell you how much they cost.
I was trying to be polite. Before we get to that part, though, I do have one more book in my hand, and it is for the person who put blood, sweat, tears, nighttime, daytime, morning, everything into actually putting this book together, formatting this publication. This was an inside job in the best way possible. We, as a small team, you find your way, and sometimes you find your way without money, and you have to make it happen. And nobody made it happen for this physical book more than Miss Donielle Polius, who leads our operations, who is so many things in one.
Telling her, put Tia's poem on that side and the other one on that side. At 5 o'clock in the morning, Donielle, you put the accents the correct place, and she was patient as ever. So, Donielle, this would not exist without you, and thank you so, so much.
And while Donielle is at the front, she has the great job of saying thank you to all of you. Ms. Donielle Polius, for our vote of thanks.
This book, this collection is a little over 12 months in the making, and it is a little surreal being here with everyone tonight and holding this baby, our child, in our hand. And I have two sheets just listing all the people who made tonight possible, because there are a lot of people to thank for that. So just for the sake of fluidity, I'd like us to hold the applause till the end after I have read out this very lengthy list. So to our distinguished officials here tonight, our dear writers, and your family, friends, family, colleagues, and partners of Listwa, on behalf of the entire team, I thank you so much for joining us tonight to bear witness to the culmination of this year's worth of labor, our labor of love. Tonight's launch, this anthology, our retreat in October last year, where it all began, would not have been possible without the collective support of several key individuals and organizations. So to the Commonwealth Foundation, who saw potential in this project and supported our vision through their generous grant funding, we are grateful. To the Cultural Development Foundation, CDF, for including Listwa's launch in the official Emancipation calendar this year, and as our primary sponsor for tonight's launch, we are grateful. To our dear, dear facilitators, Drania Frederick, Yolene Hampson, Raisa Joseph, McDonald Dixon, and Patterson Joseph, who answered our call and went above and beyond, sharing their insights and expertise and pouring into our participants with care and dedication. Our gratitude is beyond measure. To Kai Miller, our feature speaker for our inaugural retreat, our sincerest gratitude goes out to him for imparting his wisdom and being open to learning about us and learning from us and teaching us. And it was truly an honor to have him share this experience with us. To Adrian Auger for his help in shaping the retreat and for daring us to think big and to stop selling ourselves short. To Balambush Estate and Utah Lawaits, who offered us not just a venue, but the perfect home to build community and to explore our ideas over that special weekend. We thank her for her hospitality. To our videography and photography team for the Writers' Retreat, Hunting Grounds Media, McAllister Hunt, Elon Sonny, and Dwight Ravenel. Thank you for capturing our memories with such rich detail. To Jonathan Gladding, whose extraordinary artwork carries a world of stories, our gratitude is rivaled only by the excitement we felt when he agreed. Without hesitation, I might add, to design our cover. Special thanks again to Raisa Joseph and Marilyn Hyacinth for authoring their expert guidance and vetting some of our Creole translations in the anthology. Calabash TV, our media partners for this evening's proceedings, Thank you for being with us here tonight to capture this auspicious moment. Export Saint Lucia for generously providing us with a wonderful photographer for the evening. To Vibes Audio Rentals, who have done an excellent job this evening handling our sound and audio engineering. Special thanks also goes out to all of our entertainers for this evening, Michael Fletcher, Saint Lucian and her dear mom, and the Youth in Arts for making the evening even more spectacular. Listwa's trusted legal counsel, Jade Jha, for his invaluable assistance throughout the publishing process. And a heartfelt thank you as well to Quantum Gardens by Remy Francis for his dedication, expertise, and invaluable work in updating and improving our website and ensuring that it continues to grow alongside our vision. We also extend our sincerest thanks to Heineken Saint Lucia for their generous contribution towards the refreshments for this evening's events. Their support is appreciated. And to our contributors, our writers, friends as well, Tia Christopher, Monique Auguste, Petania Emilie, Lindell Halliday, Kerwin Eloise, Hazan Louis, Christina Daniel, Amanda Faye Clark, Daniel Dubois, and Krista Setage, and Trisha Lionel. Our first ever cohort, so you have set the bar high. Thank you for making our first retreat so memorable and impactful, and for trusting us to help bring your stories to Saint Lucia and the wider world. And finally, to the Listwa team, to Amani Mathre for her vision and passion for storytelling and culture, and for gathering and trusting this small group of determined, headstrong women, namely Nelsia Shalmine, Jenica Simon, Trisha Lionel, and myself, to help bring her vision to fruition. I stand before all of you tonight, humble and eternally grateful to every one of you for your support, guidance, and most importantly, your faith in the mission and in what we do. To every single person present here tonight or with us in spirit, whoever offered a kind word or assisted us in any way throughout this journey, on behalf of the entire Listwa team, thank you. Thank you for making tonight possible, and we look forward to your continued partnership and support in our cause and future endeavors. Thank you.
And so I want to join my team member in thanking all of you for being here, for spending about 2 hours with us on a Saturday evening. It's made us very proud to know that we have been able to pull all of this together and that all of you are willing to support this cause. I'm going to remind you, like Jenica said, that we do have copies available for sale this evening. Every copy of Tiwé Listwa is $60 EC, and every dollar from this book goes into funding our next retreat. This is a circular economy within Listwa. It is not cheap to host a 3-day, 2-night retreat. So long ago. And so this is what it is. This is not a for-profit initiative. This is the pool that we are creating to propel the next 10, 11, 12, 15 Saint Lucian writers. And I want to thank you again for being here with us this evening. There are refreshments to my right, your left in the back. And if you would like to purchase a copy of Tiwé Listwa Emerging Voices from Saint Lucia, that would make us and our offers extremely happy. I'm Nelsia Shalmine, and thank you so much for being here with us this evening.